We're gonna be reacting to her story, like I said in the last video I'm posting right now. Go watch it. I'm sorry if my voice is kind of not real. It's really hard to hear because I know it's really hard to hear, but but my fan is too loud. I'm so sorry. And by the way, go watch this video. It's with my BFF I'm going to softball with. So we're going to be watching the shorts, okay?
When my daughter finally learned the
guitar, this time we're doing
the guitar, I finally understood what she'd actually been doing all along. My 12-year-old tore open her birthday present and saw the electric guitar she'd been asking for months, and her eyes lit up. She pointed at her poster of my dad with his rock band and said, "Now I can be just like Grandpa." She plugged it into her amp and started enthusiastically playing random notes while the whole house shook. My dad was old and could barely open his eyes anymore, but he still smiled hearing her mess up the notes. For months, she played the guitar at full volume every day, and my dad's hands shook trying to teach her the fretboard. I begged them to turn it down, but she just kept rocking, and his hearing was so bad, this was the only way he heard anything. She practiced the same thing over and over every day, but I couldn't understand what it was, because she couldn't play 2 seconds without messing up. When my dad came over one day, instead of teaching her, he sat outside her bedroom door, listening with his eyes closed and a tear rolling down his face. 2 days later, he passed away, and his last words to my daughter were, "Promise me you'll play it." She nodded through her tears and let go of his hand. She played her guitar quieter after that, but never stopped. Always that same thing I still didn't recognize. On the 1-year anniversary of my dad's death, our family gathered at our house. I was emotional and trying to hold it together, and that's when my daughter walked downstairs with her guitar slung over her shoulder and tears in her eyes. She plugged into the amp in the living room and started playing. I immediately dropped my glass and burst into tears. It was my dad's famous guitar solo, the most known piece of music he'd ever created. I realized she'd been learning it from the moment she got that guitar. She played it perfectly, and when she finished, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I told you I could be just like Grandpa." When my daughter finally learned the guitar, I finally understood what she'd
That was actually so sweet for doing that, because honestly that some kids don't even love their grandpa, so that is very sweet.
I walked into my sister's hospital room and found her hospital aide pinching her breathing tube shut, smiling as the monitor started to spike. I slapped her hand away. "That's my sister! Are you trying to kill her?" But she grinned wider. "She's in a coma, sweetie. She can't feel a thing, and she can't tell anyone, so there's nothing you can do." My fists clenched, because my sister protected me my whole life, and now she was the helpless one. So I kissed her forehead and hurried to the front desk to report the aide, but they rolled their eyes. An aide would never do that. "Stop lying and go back to your room." I walked back toward her room, defeated, knowing I was the only one who believed my sister was in danger. But when I opened the door, the aide had her hand clamped over my sister's tube again, pressing harder this time, laughing under her breath as a tear slid down my sister's cheek. My heart broke. She could feel it. "Stop!" I screamed. I tackled her to the ground, but my sister's lips were already turning blue, her whole body shaking as the monitor flatlined. A nurse sprinted in. "She's suffocating. We're losing her." The aide pointed at me before I could open my mouth. "She's been hurting her. I tried to stop it." The nurse turned to me with pure disgust. "You're banned from visiting." She called for security, and security grabbed my arms. I kicked and screamed, but they hauled me through the doors, and the aide smiled.
Wait. Why are they arresting her for being the innocent one?
I smiled and waved as my sister started seizing on the bed. I couldn't protect her, and I had no idea if I'd ever see her alive again. But then later that day, the hospital called. "It's an emergency. You need to come in now." My hands started shaking because I was sure my sister was gone. I sprinted through the doors they'd banned me from, braced for the worst. But when I reached her room, my sister was sitting up, awake. A doctor stood beside her, stunned. The seizure was so severe it shocked her out of the coma. Before I could even move, my sister lifted a shaking finger toward the aide in the corner. She tried to kill me and blamed my sister. She said I couldn't move or speak, but I heard and felt everything. The room went silent, and the aide's face went white. Security moved in, but I got there first and drove my elbow into her chest, forcing the air from her lungs like she did to my sister. As she gasped, I leaned down. "There's nothing you can do about it." I walked into my sister's hospital room.
That was kind of mean, though. Not gonna lie. But she was suffocating her, so she kind of deserves it.
I was streaming.
What the freak?
Mikey.
We're not the only ones.
I was streaming. streaming to 43 viewers from inside the tube of the big red slide at the water park when suddenly the lights all turned off. Me and my boys exchanged glances with each other as a chain scraped through the front gate. My boy Moss whispered, "If security finds us, that's breaking and entering." I smirked. "We have 8 hours until he comes back. Let's make the most of it." Moss rubbed his hands together like an evil fly, grabbed my selfie stick with the stream, and sprinted to the tallest drop slide. "Check me out, chat." He stood up on the platform rail and backflipped into the catch pool. I silently burst out laughing because for a second, we completely forgot about security. We drifted the lazy river next. 3 tubes hooked at the ankles, floating past dead neon under the open sky. My boy Dario grabbed my hand and joked, "So romantic." I shoved him off me, and I was pushing him under by the shoulders when a light turned on in the office window over the gates. Moss pulled us under the bridge. The window went dark, and nobody spoke for a full lap. The wave pool roared to life on its own, and none of us were anywhere near the switches. I fumbled with the panel to shut it off, but the waves kept rolling. I whispered into the camera, "We might be cooked, chat." A flashlight beam hit us from across the deck and pinned all 3 of us against the wall. Nobody ran because there was nowhere left to run. The beam walked closer until I could see him. It was an older guy with a buzz cut and a ring of keys on his hip. He clicked the flashlight off and turned his phone around. Our stream was playing on his screen. "I was the one who turned those lights off. I've been in your stream all day." I gasped because we'd spent 8 hours hiding from the man who was watching us hide. He kicked off his shoes. 22 years of night shifts, and I've never once gotten to go on the slides for free. Move. He slid down the red tube. When he got to the bottom, he held up 2 fingers. "You were never here." Then he turned the whole park back on, and for 1 hour, there were 4 of us. I ended the stream from the parking lot. I was streaming to 40...
Okay, that's... Okay, I like that. I like that they were streaming.
They got on stage and started singing karaoke, but when I heard the opening melody, I instantly freaked out. It sounded exactly like the song I'd written 10 years ago, the song that only I knew. The singer was staring directly at me like they were taunting me, but their hood was up and shadows covered their face so I couldn't see them. The singer pointed at me, and my friends looked at the stage with horrified expressions. I stood up and bolted out of the bar, clutching the table knife in my hand in case they followed me, and I needed to protect myself. But when I opened the door, the bouncer stopped me and asked why I had jumped off the stage. I looked down at my hand and saw the microphone in my palm, and the bouncer pulled up footage of me singing my song on stage, then suddenly pointing at air before screaming and running out. The chair I had sat in was empty the entire time. They got on stage and started singing karaoke, but when I heard the opening...
Wait, what?
The girl had an I started ice skating into the middle of the rink, getting ready for the backflip in my figure skating routine. Let It Go by Frozen played, and the college scout held his pen over the clipboard, ready to see whether I deserved my scholarship, the one that would finally take me and my mom out of poverty. I arched backwards with both my hands out, but my toe pick caught the ice before I could get up, and my legs stayed planted while the rest of my body kept turning. My
That is crazy.
legs snapped in half, and while the ice rink flooded with paramedics, all I was thinking about was whether I'd ever be able to skate again. At the hospital, they told me I'd need a leg amputation or I'd die. I nodded with tears in my eyes because I already knew we wouldn't be able to afford a prosthetic, and they gently injected anesthesia into my veins. When I went home a week later with only 1 leg, there was a letter from my dream college saying, "Scholarship revoked." But every day I'd stand at the counter and try spinning anyway. I'd balance on 1 leg with both arms out, but fall down on the tile every time. One night, I couldn't take it and immediately broke down. Mom held me on the floor and I whispered, "I'm never skating again." She opened up her jacket and pulled out 2 tickets. "I was saving these to show you on your birthday, but I'll show you now. It's 2 tickets to Disney on Ice, baby. It took me months to save for." I nodded with tears in my eyes, and nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. The show was in the same arena where I fell, and when Elsa skated out to Let It Go, I grabbed Mom's arm and asked to leave. She held my hand tighter. "Just wait, honey." Elsa went up into the same backflip that broke me, except she landed it clean, and I cried until my entire face puffed up. But after the show, an usher waved us to the tunnel, and Elsa skated over and knocked her knuckles on her shin. "This is a prosthetic. I had an injury when I was 16, on the same leg as yours." I gasped. "How did you know?" She nodded at my mom. "Your mom wrote me a letter. She says you'll never be able to spin again because you couldn't afford a prosthetic." She handed us both an envelope. I gasped without opening because I already knew what was inside. "Thank you." She shook her head. "That's what Disney princesses are supposed to do. Make dreams come true." 3 weeks later, in that same arena, Mom was sitting where the scout had sat when I went up for the backflip, and this time, I came down clean. I started ice.
That is so sweet.
A man's hand grabbed my hair and slammed my head into the stairwell wall and said, "Shh." Shh, don't fight me, sweetheart. Everything spun, and all I could think was run. So I tore away, leaving a fistful of my hair in his hand, and I ran down the stairs screaming, "Help! Somebody help me!" But nobody answered because the whole building evacuated hours ago when the flood came. And when I got to the second floor, I stopped running because the stairs below me were gone under black water. I whimpered because that water covered the lobby, the front door, and the street. So now I was trapped with a man that was hunting me. And then I heard his footsteps behind me, and when I turned, he was standing at the top of the stairs. "You're shaking, sweetheart. Come here and let me hold you." "Stay away from me!" I shoved the... A man's hand grabbed my hair and slammed my head into the stairwell wall and said, "Shh, don't fight me, sweetheart." Everything spun, and all I could think was run. So I tore away, leaving a fistful of my hair in his hand, and I ran down the stairs screaming, "Help! Somebody help me!" But nobody answered because the whole building evacuated hours ago when the flood came. And when I got to the second floor, I stopped running because the stairs below me were gone under black water. I whimpered because that water covered the lobby, the front door, and the street. So now I was trapped with a man that was hunting me. And then I heard his footsteps behind me, and when I turned, he was standing at the top of the stairs. "You're shaking, sweetheart. Come here and let me hold you." "Stay away from me!" I shoved the second floor door open, and cold water flooded my shoes, but I ran into the hall anyway, yanking on every handle. But then the stairwell door swung open, and the water splashed behind me as he walked towards me. "That door's locked, baby. So is the next one. So is 2D. I was so scared I couldn't breathe. And then he hit me from behind, and I fell face first into the water, and then his knee landed on my back. "You're safe now. I've got you. Please, please, just let me go." "Let you go." He laughed softly and knelt down beside me, pushing my wet hair off my face. "Baby, I've waited so long for this." Those words scared me, and I realized I had to save myself. So I grabbed his hair and slammed his face down into the water and held it there while I looked for a way to escape. And that's when I saw it. The fire escape was at the end of the hall, and I thought I could survive this. So I let go and ran for it. But when I got the window open, my hope died because there was nothing out there but water. It covered the street, the cars, was up to the roofs of houses. Even the fire escape ladder disappeared into it. And then he was right behind me. "There's nowhere for you to go, so come stay with me." I thought I was done for, but then I saw the fire extinguisher hanging on the wall. I grabbed it and swung it into his face, and he dropped. I held the fire extinguisher tight, waiting for him to get back up, but he didn't, and the relief hit me hard, but I still needed to hide. So I ran and tried another handle, and 2F opened. I got inside and shoved it shut and could finally breathe as I felt safe. But when I looked up, I felt scared again, because there were hundreds of photos of me covering the wall, me sleeping, me at work, me at dinner with my mom, me watching TV. He'd been stalking me for months, and then the doorknob turned and he said, "Baby, you found my room." A man's hand grabbed my hair. I went to the concert with one rule: stay in the back where nobody could touch me. My friends knew this. I had my spot picked out by the merch table, one hand on a warm soda, both feet planted safely behind a guy wearing a shirt that said crew, even though he clearly wasn't. On stage, the lead singer shouted, "I want to see somebody fly," and my friend Jess turned to me with the kind of smile that ruins lives. "Absolutely not," I said. "I have never crowd surfed. I don't even like escalators." Jess grabbed my soda. Marco grabbed my ankles. Lena hooked both arms under my shoulders. "You said this year you wanted to stop watching everything from the back." Before I could explain that I meant emotionally, they lifted me over their heads and threw me at the crowd. For half a second, I was weightless above 500 screaming strangers. Then hands caught my back, my shoes, my elbows, and I started moving forward like luggage on the world's loudest conveyor belt. Someone spun me sideways. Someone else saved my left boot. My hair slapped across my mouth, my shirt rode up, and every time I tried to sit up, the crowd launched me higher. I flew past the snack stand, past the sound booth, past two guys who both yelled, "Sorry!" while steering me by my knees. The stage got bigger. The drums got louder. I started laughing so hard I couldn't tell if I was brave or just out of oxygen. Then the song cut out for one quiet beat. The hands under me vanished, and I dropped straight into the middle of the crowd. I hit the floor on my hip, curled around my ribs, and for 1 second, all I could see were boots stomping around me. My laugh disappeared. A hand reached down, then another, then 6 more, pulling me up before the next chorus hit. I staggered forward, ready to fight my way back to the merch table, but there was no crowd in front of me anymore. There was only the barricade. The stage lights blasted my face. The singer leaned over the edge, pointed right at me, and screamed, "She made it!" Behind me, Jess, Marco, and Lena were tiny specks near the back, jumping and waving like they had shipped me first class. I grabbed the barricade with both hands and stayed there for the rest of the show. I went to the concert with one rule: stay in the back where nobody could touch. Every night my mom would pour salt around me and my brother and scream, "All these horror games are letting spirits into our home." My mom did this for me every night. Now I'm doing it for us. Me and Finn would always roll our eyes, but one night I whispered, "If she believes in ghosts, then we have to be the ones to prove they're not real. She can't live in fear forever." Finn didn't understand my plan, but he nodded and was ready to go along with it anyway. We waited until the house was completely dark, and Finn scraped a chair leg across the hallway floor to make Mom think that that there were ghosts in the house. We could hear Mom jump up in her room, and I laughed because I knew she was thinking that the house was haunted, which meant our plan was working. We were going to show her it was just us, and she would realize there was never any ghosts in the house. Suddenly, we could hear her whispering through the wall, fast and low, the same words over and over, like she was talking to somebody that wasn't there. We both froze, not knowing what was going on. Finn's head whipped around to the dark hallway. "Do you hear that?" I stopped to listen. There was a scratching sound. I went toward it and put my hand on the door. My hand froze on the knob. On the other side, the scratching stopped right where I stood, and a voice came through the wood, low enough that only I could hear. "You let me in, thank you." I let go, backed down the hall, and Finn and I ran to Mom's room. She was sitting up in bed, staring at the salt smeared into the carpet. She'd never been crazy, just scared first, and we'd spent all night showing it the way in. Every night
Well, that's crazy.
Okay, I like where this is going.
My ex called me paranoid for worrying about the bounce house at my daughter's birthday, right before it ripped loose with all 8 kids still inside. He showed up, I stuck my tongue. My ex called me.
Why though is your ex literally he calling you crazy for saving your daughter? That is literally crazy.
Paranoid for worrying about the bounce house at my daughter's birthday, right before it ripped loose with all 8 kids still inside. He showed up uninvited that afternoon with his new girlfriend and a cake that said, "From Daddy," in pink frosting, telling everyone he was the one who got the bounce house. He walked around my backyard like he'd built it himself. When the wind picked up and the whole thing started swaying, I called the kids over for cake. He waved me off. "You're being paranoid as usual. Stop trying to ruin this." Then he turned around and started lifting kids back in through the flap. The first stake ripped out of the ground before anyone could move. The second one went a breath later, and the whole bounce house lurched sideways. I sprinted for it, but the wind had already caught it like a sail, and it was moving faster than I could run, fishtailing across the lawn and clipping the folding table hard enough to send juice boxes flying. Chloe's face hit the mesh window, both hands pressed flat against it. The structure tilted, and she slid backward out of view. I screamed her name. 2 of the dads grabbed the ropes, and one got dragged 3 yards before he let go. I dove for the flap as another gust hit and started dragging kids out as fast as I could grab them, counting under my breath until I got to 7. But Chloe wasn't one of them, and the bounce house was sliding straight for the fence with her still trapped inside. I shoved my arm through the flap and felt her fingers. I pulled harder than I'd ever pulled anything, and she came loose just as the frame slammed into the fence and folded in half. 8. Every one of them on the grass, crying but breathing. The wreckage settled against the fence, and the whole backyard went quiet. A fire captain showed up and found paperwork showing the rental company had been banned from operating for 8 months. My ex got to him first, pointing at me. "This is her party, her backyard. She let those kids climb back in." I felt my stomach drop because it was working. The captain was buying it, but his girlfriend spoke up loud enough for the whole yard to hear. He picked the cheapest one he could find. He said now that he lost custody, he wasn't spending real money on her. He just wanted everyone to think he was a good dad. My ex didn't say a word. Chloe ran straight past the cake that said "From Daddy" and grabbed my legs. I just held on while we watched the cops walk my ex out in handcuffs. My ex called me paranoid for worrying about the bounce. I stuck my tongue out against the frozen metal pole.
First of all, why are you sticking your tongue on the metal pole?
To show my friend wouldn't stick, but when I tried to pull it back, I couldn't. My heart sank, and my friend instantly started laughing. I screamed, "I's not honey."
Why is she laughing when she should be laughing at her face? Because the blonde girl, when the girl with the orange hair, she should be laughing at her face.
Tell me, but when
At the blonde girl's face.
He tried yanking me back, my tongue stayed frozen on the pole. I began panicking because I couldn't let anyone see me like this, and that's when my friend got an idea. She pulled out her thermos of hot tea and started pouring it over my tongue. I screamed in pain immediately, and she stopped, but my tongue stayed frozen, and my scream was so loud a crowd had now gathered around me. People were shouting ideas and filming, and someone called the fire department. I stood there crying, still frozen to a pole. A fire truck soon pulled up, and the firefighters circled me, trying to figure out what to do. One of them hooked a chain around the pole and attached it to their truck, and my whole body went cold with fear. I shook my head no, but the driver hit the gas. The entire pole ripped clean out of the ground, and I fell backwards with it, but my tongue was still somehow frozen to the metal. I lay in the snow with a pole attached to my face, but that's when my dad stepped out in his slippers. He looked around, muttered "morons" to himself, and crouched down next to me. "Just cup your hands around your tongue." I wrapped my gloved hands around my tongue, and within seconds, the trapped heat melted the ice right off. I stuck my numb tongue back in my mouth and stared at the dozens of people, the firefighters, and the pole on the ground. I stuck my tongue out against the frozen metal. Here's how people
That's why you don't
I was
do
waiting
that.
for my dad to pick me up from school when a woman walked up to me. Hey, sweetie, I'm your mom. I immediately felt
No, do not trust strangers, even though they look like them.
nervous. My dad always told me she was dangerous and was in jail for doing horrible things, but she looked so nice. She told me my dad asked her to pick me up, and when my teacher overheard, she said, "Oh, that's so sweet." If my teacher believed her, then she must have been telling the truth, right? But before I could decide, she pulled me into her car. She took me out to eat and bought me expensive toys and clothes and seemed really nice, but she told me my dad lied about her being a criminal. She said he kidnapped me from her when I was young, and she'd been looking for me ever since. I was so mad at dad for lying, but as we drove down the road, I realized I didn't know where we were. Mom, I think we're lost, but she just shrugged. This is a detour. We turned down a dirt road, but I started getting really nervous. Mom, I don't like this. Where are we? She didn't say anything. She told me to get out and brought me up to a house. The second she knocked on the door, two men immediately grabbed me. Mom, no! But they pulled me in, handed my mom some cash, and left. I kicked at them, but they were stronger, and I was brought into a small room with no windows. There were other kids there, and they all looked scared too. I tried to act friendly, but none of them spoke the same language as me. My dad was right. My mom was evil. They took us all upstairs the next day and made us get into a truck. My hands were tied, so I couldn't do anything. I thought I'd never see my dad again. He was right about my mom. I never should have listened. They made us get onto a boat, and I overheard one of them say we were leaving Japan. I knew I couldn't go. I just wanted to tell my dad I was sorry. Then, one of the other boys touched my arm. He showed me what he was holding. He had a small knife. He motioned for me to turn around, and as I did, I felt him start cutting the rope. He had to hurry. The men could walk in any second. I felt it snap, and my hands were free, but one of them yelled, "Hey!" They saw him and instantly grabbed him. Another one ran in, and when he saw my hands untied, he ran towards me. I kicked him in the balls as hard as I could and ran outside. He was chasing me. Grab her, and with no other choice, I jumped. The ocean was freezing, and I couldn't see. I started swimming, but
How did she not drown?
eventually, I realized I was going to die. I was freezing to death, and I started to see the light. This was the end for me. But when I opened my eyes, it was real. The light was coming from the shore. I thought about my dad, how upset he'd be if he never saw me again, and used all my energy to swim towards it. The people on the land saw me and pulled me out of the water. I should have listened. Now I'm traumatized forever. I was waiting for my dad to pick me up from school when a woman walked up to me. Hey, sweetie, I'm your mom. I immediately felt nervous. I was preparing for the dog competition when my rival kicked my dog and laughed. That mutt is too ugly and talentless to be here. Leave now and save yourself. Tater Tot whimpered and the crowd snickered, but I knelt down and scratched him behind the ears. He was the last dog left at the shelter, the one no one believed in but me. The rival smirked beside her showbred champion. This is going to be our 5th year in a row winning. You don't stand a chance. Then the buzzer blared, the gates dropped, and the dogs lined up. As Tater Tot took his position, my rival whispered, "I'll make sure your mutt is last place." I didn't know what she meant by that, but Tater Tot flew through the course, tongue out, happier than I'd seen him since the shelter. He cleared the tunnel and the weave poles, and we were in the lead. But then I heard 2 sharp snaps, and the rival's champion slammed into Tater Tot's side, knocking him off the ramp as he cried out. I whipped toward the sound and saw my rival's fingers raised, snapping again, and her dog rammed another competitor to the ground. I realized the snaps were her signaling her dog to ram the others, and she was cheating. Then she clapped twice, and her dog stopped dead in the track, sending 3 dogs crashing into a pileup behind it. But Tater Tot scrambled up and pushed through the chaos, sprinting past her champion and into the lead. We were about to win. Then the rival saw us pulling ahead, snapped twice, and her dog rammed Tater Tot right at the finish line, throwing us back just enough to cross at the exact same moment. The judges stood up. It's a tie. We need to review further. As the judges leaned in to decide who won, the rival slid up beside them, whispering in their ears, and I knew it was now or never. She's cheating, I shouted, pointing at my rival. She's been sabotaging the other dogs by snapping. The judges frowned, and one shook his head. That's a serious accusation. Dogs don't just attack on command. The rival smirked, certain she'd already won. Get her out of here. She and her dog don't belong. But I stepped forward and raised my hand. Just watch. I snapped twice, and her champion instantly lunged sideways, ramming into the dogs nearby. The whole crowd gasped. The rival's face went white as the judges turned to her, then to me. The champion is disqualified. The win goes to Tater Tot. I knelt down and hugged my dog as the crowd roared, trophy in hand. Then I looked at my rival on the floor, sobbing, looks like your dog was last place. I was preparing for...
That's what they get. That's what the enemy gets. But guys, I think that's a good time to end the video. Sorry if it was too short. Actually, let's watch a couple more.
I was scrolling through the twin day photos on my phone, waiting for my best friend Jade to get back from the bathroom.
Wait, she has eyes that are like different colored, like Booshot from the Goobers. and he reacted to her story and his story with Dingus on their channel Ding and Doge. So go watch it.
When the fire alarm pierced my ears, a teacher started waving us all towards the door. Leave everything. Exit the building. I got swept into the crowd pouring outside before I could even look for Jade, but I told myself she'd find me outside. On the football field, a teacher ran between groups with her clipboard, recounting the same rows twice. The teacher's voice cut through the noise. I counted 23. I'm missing 1. My stomach dropped as I realized Jade wasn't outside. The teacher was looking around frantically. Has anyone seen Jade? Nobody answered. The 2 firefighters came out of the school smiling. It was a false alarm. The teacher grabbed one by the arm and his face changed as she whispered to him. They all went back inside for so long that my hands went numb from gripping my own sleeves. Yo, what if she's like dead or something? Someone whispered behind me. 20 minutes in, the firefighters came back out shaking their heads. Jade wasn't in the building. The police arrived next and 2 officers jogged up. Does anyone know what she was wearing? My throat locked up for a second before the words came out. Pink hoodie, ripped jeans, and white Converse. It's twin day, so she's dressed exactly like me. The officers nodded and ran inside, radioing the description ahead of them. I was still standing at the edge of the field 20 minutes later when I saw Jade walking up the sidewalk from the parking lot, followed by her mom and an officer. I ran to her and pulled her into a hug, but she flinched away. I'm sorry. She wouldn't look at me, and her mascara had run in dark tracks down her face. I got my period really bad, and it got on my jeans, and I just panicked. Her voice cracked on the word panicked. I pulled the alarm so I could get out without anyone seeing. The officer beside her crossed his arms. That's the whole story? Jade nodded, staring at her shoes. I didn't think anyone would notice I was gone. I hugged her again. Of course I noticed. You're my best friend. I thought you died. Jade laughed a little. I felt like I was about to. I was scrolling. I ducked into the cafeteria of my new school, and a kid laughed and pointed, "Yo, check it out! An NBA player is here." I sighed and tried to ignore him while he made fun of me because it's not like I chose to be 6'5", but the entire cafeteria started laughing at
6'5"?
me and banging on the tables. LeBron, LeBron. I froze and hunched over, trying to make myself look as small as possible. All I wanted was to get through one day without being the thing people pointed at. When school ended, I was walking towards the sports hall when 3 kids wobbled towards me while walking on stilts. "Look," one of them said, grinning. "We look just like you." I blinked back the tears in my eyes and pretended not to care, and I walked in to try out for the girls' basketball team, the only place where being a 6'5" girl was actually useful. I started speaking to the coach, thinking that this would be my moment, but he took out a measuring tape and started measuring my height. "Honestly, you'd be better off on the boys' team." He pointed to the other side of the court, and I slowly walked over and gulped, not knowing what their reaction would be. Their tallest kid shoulder-checked me going past. "You sure you're in the right league, LeBrona?" They all keeled over laughing, and I went red and wanted to give up on myself. Their coach clapped me on the shoulder. "The game is next Friday. Usually I'd make a newbie do the training drills, but since you're the tallest one here, you'll be all right." I nodded like I knew what I was doing, but I'd never played a game against men before in my life. A week later, I jogged out to the court while the entire school watched. When I turned to the audience, I saw every single student had LeBron masks on. They all chanted and laughed, "LeBrona, LeBrona." I blocked out the sound and put on my game face. When the game started, I bricked my first 3 shots. I kept catching myself hunching, folding down, taking up less room on the court, until I caught my reflection in the gym doors, all curled up and small. I was so tired of doing that. So I stopped, and for the first time ever, I stood up to my full height. Next possession, their big kid drove at me, and I swatted his shot out of the air. I grabbed the loose ball, took 2 dribbles, and went up right over him. The whole gym heard the rim shake. I hung there for a second. Below me was a sea of LeBron masks, all on their feet now, screaming my name. "Go LeBrona! You're the GOAT!" The same name that used to make me feel small was now making me feel unstoppable. Everyone was pointing at me, but for the first
Okay, I like this one.
time, the pool water around me randomly turned yellow while I was talking to my crush. The most popular girl at the public pool, Bryn, pointed straight at me. "Ew, she's peeing in the pool. She's peeing right now." The lifeguard's whistle ripped out, and everyone, including my crush, scrambled towards the pool ladders to get out of the pool. Some of them were even hiding behind trash cans with wasps just to get away from me. My face was red, and I screamed, "I didn't!" But no one believed me. I climbed out with arms clamped over my chest, while phones came up and Bryn's friends started chanting, "Pee girl, pee girl." My crush scrunched up his face like he was regretting every second he'd spent talking to me, and I knew I needed to find a way to prove I was innocent. My eyes darted to Bryn's free hand that was wrapped around a pineapple juice carton, and the juice looked exactly like the yellow that was in the pool. I pointed, "That's what she poured into the pool to make it look like I peed." But everyone kept chanting, "Pee girl!" No one cared what the truth was. I opened my mouth to plead my innocence again, but someone threw an unused diaper into it. Bryn leaned in so only I could hear, "Nobody's ever going to believe you, babe." My nails were cutting into my palms when a wasp dropped onto her sticky wrist. She flicked it off mid-laugh, but it gave me an idea. idea. I grabbed the carton and started splashing the pineapple juice all over her, squeezing out every last drop. For a second, everyone stopped chanting, all watching to see what the hell I was up to. But the wasp came back with 2 friends from the trash cans. I grabbed her wrist and held it up for the whole deck. Wasps don't come for pee, they come for sugar. The deck went quiet enough to hear the buzzing. A kid on the steps yelled, "That's juice." She dumped her juice in to frame her. Bryn yanked her arm back and started stepping backwards on the wet tile until she dropped butt first into the yellow. She surfaced, shrieking, "I'm sitting in her pee." I picked the diaper off the tile and tossed it to her. "Looks like you need this." My crush scooped my towel off the chair and held it open with half a smile. Now, where were we? The pool water around me randomly turned yellow while I was talking to my crush. The most popular girl at the public pool, Bryn, pointed straight at me.
At first I thought her crush peed in the pool until I looked at the title. What? That makes no freaking sense.
I pulled up to the Taco Bell drive-thru window, and the worker held out the bag, but when I tried to reach for it, my arm wouldn't move. She stood there holding it out, staring at me. "Ma'am?" I tried to move again, and nothing happened. "Mommy, I'm hungry," my daughter Fiona cried from the back seat. Something was very wrong, and I could not tell either of them. The worker pulled the bag back and leaned out the window. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I tried to ask for help, but my mouth wouldn't open. The car behind me honked, and a second worker appeared behind the first one. "Look at her eyes. I think she's on something." The first one nodded. "And there's a kid in the back. How trashy can you be?" I couldn't say a single word to defend myself, and to make things worse, my body had started shaking, and I couldn't make it stop. Fiona yelled from the back seat again, "Mommy, what's wrong? Mommy, answer me!" My vision started going dark at the edges, and the drive-thru window began to blur. Then I heard a car door slam shut, and a woman appeared next to my window looking angry. "What is your problem? I'm going to be late for..." She stopped mid-sentence when she saw my face. I watched her face shift from anger to concern as she pulled out her phone and made a call. "I've got an active stroke at Taco Bell. Female, mid-30s. Send everything." She reached through my window and put the car in park, then she got me out onto the pavement and laid me on my side. She kept her hand on my shoulder until the ambulance got there. I'd had a stroke, and she recognized it because she was a doctor on her lunch break. She rode in the ambulance holding Fiona's hand the whole way, and when we got to the hospital, the doctors told me another few minutes and I wouldn't have survived. Fiona sent her a thank you card that said, "Thank you for being mad at Mommy."
That's crazy for saying thank you for being mad at Mommy. Like, she was literally almost dead.
My friend asked, "In a life or death situation, who would you choose to live, your mom or your twin brother?" "Well, obviously my mom. I'm a girl's girl." Everyone in the cafeteria stopped chewing, and my best friend Ariana started crying. "I can't believe you just made that decision." I frowned. "What decision? It was a hypothetical scenario. I was just kidding." They all got up and left, and my legs felt like jelly, so I headed to the office to call home. The secretary stood up instantly. "Sweetie, you should be at the hospital with your mom." I stared at her like she had just grown 10 heads. "What? Is my mom at the hospital? What's going on?" She forced a horrible fake smile. "Your aunt's on the way. She'll explain everything." When my aunt finally arrived, her eyes were swollen like she'd been crying for hours. I grabbed her. "What's going on? Does this have to do with the stupid joke I made earlier?" She led me to her car. "Come on, baby." When we got to the hospital, she dragged me to the ICU. The hallway was packed with people I knew, and my brother's whole hockey team was there in their practice jerseys, one of them on the floor still holding his stick. Everyone kept saying this was about my mom, so why was my brother's whole team here? When we got to room 54, my mom was in the hospital bed. She was unconscious and hooked to machines. My aunt spoke. "There was an accident this morning. Her and your brother were driving to Walgreens to pick up your brother's prescription. A drunk driver hit them head on. I couldn't breathe. Where is he? Where's my brother?" Aunt Lisa's face crumbled. Both of them needed organ transplants to survive, and they were perfect matches for each other. Only one of them could survive. Tears were streaming down my face. "No, the ethics board said we had to choose which one could live. Your brother said he wanted to leave the decision to you. That's why your friends asked you that question. Someone from the hospital called the school to get your answer. You chose your mom. My brother was gone because I said, 'Girls support girls,' like it was funny." My friend asked, "In a life or death situation, who would you choose to live, your mom or your twin brother?"
Okay, so that's the end of the video. But bye, besties.